Today I am creating a video on macros for our friend Swapnil. Macros can be created in two ways. One, either by recording a macro or writing codes on our own. Recording a macro can be considered as a beginner level, while writing codes can be considered as an advanced level. To begin with, let's look at how to record a macro. To record a macro, we need a developer menu. Most of them will have this developer menu and few may not have. To enable the developer menu, let's go to the toolbar, and the toolbar that you see here, for many of us it will be on top of this tab. However, I have customized it to bring it on the bottom. And when you click on this small triangle, you will see a pop-up menu coming in, and choose more commands and choose customize ribbon from the list on the left. On the right, you will have two list boxes. The rightmost list box will have a developer menu unchecked for quite few people. Please check and click OK. When you click OK, you will have the developer menu. In the developer menu, you will have an option to record a macro and to see all the macros that are listed in this workbook or in the personal file. And Visual Basic will help us to go to the Visual Basic. Now let's look at how to record a macro and customize it so that next time when we run the same macro, it has to run even if the data is more or less. For this example, I am going to split this entire data by the column O, where I have a gender, and this gender has three options. Let me show you. If you look at it, one is female, the one is male, and the third option is blank. Let's not look at the blanks for now. Click OK, and let us format a little bit so that it looks good. And I am going to apply a filter to this data. Let's do that while we record a macro. Click on record macro and choose a name. For instance, let's say split underscore data, and the second one will be, we should be able to choose a shortcut key. We cannot choose an alphabet like Control S, because Control S is already a shortcut for the Excel to save. Similarly, we cannot use other alphabets like X or D or A. So to have a shortcut which is unique at the same time that doesn't clash with the Excel shortcut, we should use Shift and the alphabet. In this case, I'm going to use E. So the shortcut will be Control, Shift and E. And I'm storing this macro in this workbook so that whenever I want, I can open this workbook and run the macro. Let us give some description so that when we revisit the macro, we will know the reason to create, or why did we create this macro, or what action that this macro is going to perform. So split data based on column O into F and M sheets. Click OK. What is this F and M sheets? I'm going to split the entire data into two parts. One, a sheet with male data, another sheet with female data. Click OK. If you notice, the macro has started recording, and that is a reason you will see stop recording as an option. Let us select the data. I'm going to select the entire data range and I'm going to apply a filter. If you look at it, the filter is applied, and the shortcut to apply a filter is Ctrl Shift L. Now let's duplicate this tab. Right click, move or copy, move to end, create a copy, click OK. Similarly, I'm going to repeat the action. Select data, right click, move or copy, move to the end and create a copy. Click OK. Now we have two additional tabs, which is data 2 and data 3, and I'm gonna rename data 3 as F to have only the female data. I'm gonna go to column O and check F, click OK and select the entire data, press Alt colon to make sure that we are deleting only the visible cells. Press Ctrl minus. Based on the data range, it might take few hours or few minutes or few seconds. I am unchecking or clearing the filter. Now I have only the female employees data or female billionaires data. This is a billionaires data. This is done, and I'm going to select column A and make sure the entire data range is selected, and I am going to make sure that the column width is auto adjusted and the shortcut is Alt O C A. Similarly, I'm going to go to data 2, rename this as M, and go to column O, uncheck M, click OK and delete all other data. Similarly, select the rest of the information, press Ctrl colon, it is Alt colon and Ctrl minus. Now all other data is deleted other than the male data. I am clearing the filter and select the entire data range and use the same shortcut Alt O C A to resize all the columns. Now let's go to data and let's assume I'm going to select this range as an indication that my macro has completed its task. Let us stop recording a macro. If you notice, when you stop record a macro, the stop recording option is gone and you see a record macro option, and here as well the stop button is gone. Let's go to Visual Basic. The shortcut is Alt F11 and towards your left you will have a small window, the project window, and you will see modules as a folder. Click the plus sign and you will see module 1. All the macros that we record will be stored under modules, and this is the first macro, hence you see module 1. If you have other macros getting recorded, you will have module 2, module 3 and module 4. And if you notice, whatever information that we've been giving while recording a macro, like the name to the macro or the shortcut key that we want to define, and we also have the description, and all these text are in green color as an indicative that these are command text, that this will not be executed. And whatever actions that we've been performing, you will see the same that is getting recorded and it is being highlighted here. Now if you see, there are ranges that are hard coded. For example, we have ranges from A1 to V2342. At the same time, you have a range that says A1 to V2669. So these are hard coded ranges. So next time when we run the same macro with an increased data, we may not get the expected result. So what are we going to do? Before we do that, or before we make the changes, what we are going to do is we are going to test the macro if it is performing good. Let's jump into the workbook and delete the sheet M and delete the sheet F. Okay, now we know the shortcut for our macro, which is Control Shift and E. We could use the shortcut or click on the macros icon and you could run from here. Let us run the macro from here, and if you see, the macro is doing its work. Yes, so the macro has completed, and if you see, it has selected this range as an indicative that the macro has been completed, which we did while we recorded. And you could also see the sheet M created and the columns are auto adjusted, and if you scroll towards your right, you will have column O, which has only male information in M sheet, and in F sheet, if you scroll towards your right, you will have only female information. Wonderful. So we have all this data created and we have two sheets created. Now let us delete it and jump into the Visual Basic Editor to make some changes, so that next time when we have an increased data range, we should have the same action performed so that we don't miss any data. Let's jump into it. We will have to define few variables. Let's press enter key on the top and let's define few variables. Call it as dim and say count 0, or let's say count underscore 0 and count underscore 1 and count underscore 2 as integers. We want all the three variables to be the integer data type. And the next change that we are going to do is we are going to make this code, set of codes that we have, to work only on this Excel. To do that, we are going to say this workbook dot sheets open bracket within quotations. We are going to call the sheet name and press a dot again. So what are we doing here? We are saying this macro has to work or should run only on this workbook, especially on the data sheet. It should not run on any other sheets. That is what this small change is going to say, or it is saying us. I'm going to copy this to avoid typing it. I'm going to paste it on every line to make sure it doesn't select any other sheet or Excel. So here I don't have to paste sheets of data because it's already there. I'm going to say only this workbook, which means I'm specifying that the changes that I'm going to do should apply to this workbook. Let me copy this and paste it over here, and until this line we are done. Here we have to make a small change so that next time when there is a change in the data size, it has to accommodate that change. To do that, let us write a simple code. Let's say count underscore 1 equals this workbook dot sheets of. Here I'm going to specify F because here we renamed the data 3 tab into F. So I am going to do that in the F sheet. So I'm specifying the name and dot used range dot rows dot count. So what does this line say? We are identifying the last edited cell in or the last edited row, and we are assigning that number to count 1. And on this next line we are going to say this workbook dot, instead of active sheet we could delete active sheet and say sheets of F, and whenever we specify the sheet name it has to be within quotations. The next change that we are doing is we are going to delete the row number, and immediately after the double quotation add an ampersand symbol and bring in the variable that we defined, and we wrote a one-liner code. So what are we doing here is we are making the range dynamic. So when this code is getting executed, it will understand the last edited row and then assign that value or the number to the variable, and the variable gets assigned to here, and it will understand that the range is until probably 2669 for today, and tomorrow it might change. And the rest of the things, if you notice, we are still working on this sheet, as in this sheet F. So to avoid typing, I'm just copying this and I'm gonna paste it over here. Again, the next line, the next line, the next line, the next line, and I'm going to apply it here as well. Fine. Again, we have the next line, which is using a data range. Here it is talking about 312. Let's press an enter and bring in this same code. Why are we doing this? These set of activities have been performed where we deleted quite few rows. So initially the row count was 2669. Since that we deleted few rows, it has reduced to 312. So we need to recalculate the last row edited and assign the value to count 1. We are doing that, and the same action we are going to perform here. Let's say this workbook dot, instead of active sheet, I'm going to say sheets of F, and instead of 312 I'm going to delete it. After the double quotations, add an ampersand symbol and the variable count underscore 1. Alright, so if you see, the next one says active window dot small scroll down 6, which means we would have scrolled it for 6 times, so we don't need the scrolling option. Let us comment it by adding a single quotation, and let's also add a single quotation here because we don't want A1 to be selected because it is not adding any value. Sorry, let's not do that. It makes sense because I'm going to copy this again. I'm going to paste it here. So we did select the rows and columns to auto fit the columns. So I'm going to do that where the selection is from A1 towards the right end, and here it is from A1 to the bottom, so which is selecting the entire data, and here we did columns auto fit. So this is done, and we are just selecting A1 to make sure that the auto fit is done, and we just select A1. Now whatever changes that we did for data 3, we are going to do the same thing here. However, instead of using count 1 as the variable, we are going to use count 2. So let's do the same thing. This workbook dot. So I'm just copying this and pasting it to the other one, and here as well I'm going to do that. And instead of active sheet, I'm going to call the sheet name as M, because the previous code clearly says it is an M. So after M, let's press an enter key, and to make it easier I'm going to copy this code and paste it over here, and instead of count underscore 1 it will be count underscore 2, and instead of F sheet it will be M. And the same changes that we are going to do it here. Instead of 2669, let us delete it, and after the quotations add ampersand, then count underscore 2, the variable, and we are going to add the same thing, which is this workbook dot sheet dot. We are going to add it to make sure that this is working perfectly fine. And if you notice, uh, the range 15 is to 19 is being selected because when we selected, um, we were, or let's say we were looking at the data for male, so the data for male did not start from the second row. It would have started from the 15th row, and that is why the Excel has recorded as 15 colon 19. Let's comment this, we don't need it. Instead, we are gonna ask the Excel to activate it from N2. So N2 is nothing but the next column, and it is going to be from the next cell. So the N1 is the header. It has to start from N2 so that we don't miss any data. And if you look at it, we also have the range getting selected. This is from N2 to the bottom, and we are also selecting only the visible cells. Though the data is starting from 15 for male, when we select from row number 2 towards the end, which is 2669, what happens when you press Alt colon, it will select only the visible cells. So the filtered cells only will be selected. And again, I'm going to add the same text here, which is this workbook dot sheet m, and again let's change it here, and now we have another change to be performed. Let's press enter just before this line because we have a range, and I'm going to call this count2 here and paste it over here. If you look at it, this workbook dot sheet m used to range dot rows dot count is gonna recalculate the rows count. I'm gonna delete the number. I'm gonna add the same variable, which is count underscore 2, and let's copy this and paste it over here. And again here, okay, we missed a dot, and again we are going to paste it here, and we are going to paste it here as well, and here as well. All right, so now this range is selected, and if you see, the sheet data is getting selected. So I'm going to add, okay, I missed a dot. So here I'm going to say this workbook dot. All right, so if you notice, we kind of selected range A1 to C9 on the data tab to indicate that the macro has been completed. However, we don't need that. Instead, we will add a one line of code to give us a pop-up message that the macro is completed. Let's say MSGBOX message box within quotations, macro completed, close quotations. Now we made all the necessary changes, and we don't need this because we haven't used this anywhere. I'm just deleting it. We made all the changes, and our macro is ready to run. And make sure whatever changes that you do, it has to be saved. And when you save this Excel file, make sure that this is saved in a macro enable format or the XLSM format, so that your macro is saved. Otherwise, if you save it in any other format like XLS or XLSX, your macro will be deleted automatically. Coming back to a macro, we are going to test it. Now I'm going to select the entire data and copy, go to the last row and paste it. Now my data has doubled, which is from 2669 it has increased to 5336. Let us run the macro now. Go to macros, run macros. Okay, there is an error which says compile error, method or data member not found. Click OK. This workbook dot sheets, we missed an S there, so I am typing an S so that this macro is going to run properly. Let us go back and run the macro again. Run. Okay, there's another error. Let's look at what that error is. F8, run. Cannot execute code in break mode. Okay, let's see what is a break mode. We do not have any break mode here. Oh, okay, since the first time the macro kind of showed up an error, we added an S. It is still in the run phase. I'm going to stop it and then go back to the spreadsheet, macro, and then run. Oh my god, click OK. I made a mistake, so everywhere I missed an S, so let me add an S. Please mind the small errors while you are writing the codes so that you don't end up doing this again. I'm going to stop it. Okay, let us go through the code once to make sure that we kind of made all the changes correctly. And this line, wherever you see a selection dot auto filter, you don't need this text. Let us delete that and let's look for any other place where there's a selection. Yes, here there's a selection. We don't need this. Again, a selection. We don't need this. The reason that we don't need that is a selection command is used to denote whatever is being selected, and we have defined a range to say this is in this workbook and this is in this sheet. So it's already defined, so let's not define it again, and if we do, it is gonna throw us some error message. Let me kind of check again. I guess we kind of made all the changes. Yes, here it is. Let's delete this. Let us delete this. Checking again from the top to make sure. Oh, yes, we missed this. Let us delete this. Okay. Okay. Yes. Here we need to delete this. Okay. And even if there are any errors, the macro is going to throw up and we can correct and start running a macro. Run. So the macro is getting executed and you could see the macro is completed and we have a message saying the macro is complete. Click macro has completed the task. So this is a simple macro that we created by recording, and we made few changes to make sure that even if there is a increase in data or decrease in data, you're able to see it. And let us do one more test. Again, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete this as well. And to run the macro really quick, I am going to select only few columns or few rows, I'm sorry. Okay, I have three male datas and three female datas, or I would say let us delete one here. I am going to remove this filter, and I'm going to run this macros run. So macro is complete, and I see M. I should have 2 rows of male data and 3 rows of female data. So 2 rows of male data and 3 rows of female data. So the macro is working even if the data range is increased or the data range is decreased. If you have any questions or need any help, please drop a note on the comment section.